Here in Brussels to discuss the terms of divorce. Hello everyone, I'm François. Welcome to a special edition of the France 24 debate from the European Commission. There's already an air of 1 foot in, 1 foot out as David Cameron meets his counterparts for 2 days of talks. The outgoing British Prime Minister, in more ways than one, on Tuesday, he's in the room. On Wednesday, the remaining 27 members of the European Union will be there to discuss the first ever nation to quit the EU. What terms for a Brexit? What will the European look like? What will Europe look like without the United Kingdom? And what future for the continent? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about the big breakup, and we're in the company of Ingeborg Grässle, chair of the Budgetary Committee of the European Parliament, a member of Angela Merkel's CDU party.
Hi.
Thank you.
Budget Control Committee.
Budget Control. Thank you very much. Budget Control Committee. Thanks for joining us. We have two Germans on set. We're pleased to welcome Rebecca Harms, who is co-chair of the Greens in the European Parliament. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening.
Nice to see you in the flesh. We've had you before on the show from a satellite link. And as well, I want to say hello to Kosmos Latowski. He is with the Conservatives and Reformist group in the European Parliament, a member of the ruling Law and Justice Party in Poland. Thank you for joining our discussion.
Good afternoon.
All right, so much to talk about, and of course the first thing is this vote that took place in the European Parliament this morning by a wide margin, members of the European Parliament asking Britain to start the clock, that famous Article 50, start that 2-year clock to start the Brexit. How did you vote, Ingeborg?
I voted alongside with the group, but I did not participate in the final vote because I found the resolution a lack of empathy and it lacked of regretting that Great Britain will leave us. I regret very much that our British friends will leave us after 42 years, and I would have loved to have it in the resolution.
So you abstained. How about you, Rebecca Harms?
I voted in favor, but since early last Friday, I have made clear that I really regret this decision. I respect it, but I regret it. And so for me, it was very much important now to agree in the European Parliament that we want a fair procedure, a procedure which deals in a fair way with both sides. The UK citizens, now in big trouble, as I see it, and the citizens of the European Union of the 27 member states.
All right, the UK citizens in big trouble. You say we're going to pick up on that point. First, I want to ask you, Kosmos Latowski, how did you vote?
I was against, because the British had made their this decision, and that's all. And they must have time to do it properly. And of course, if they voted to leave the European Union, they will leave without any. What
about this fear of prolonging the uncertainty?
Well, it doesn't matter what we have voted, but this is their decision, and they must put the decision on the table. This has not happened yet, but it will.
Do you regret the leave
Yes,
vote?
of course. We are very unhappy with leaving of Great Britain, because the European Union is weaker. But this is a chance for the European Union to change. We must answer the question why they went, and after this we can find some medicine.
There was
well, the British were not very happy in this European Union as it is, so it means the European Union is not an idea.
Rebecca Harms?
So what I felt, but then also saw it in the reports coming from UK, and I say this without wanting to blame people, yeah, but is interesting for the European Union. So obviously many British were ready to vote down the European Union without knowing what the European Union is about. And this is after decades of successful common policies to make citizens' life better. This is quite an awful, terrible situation for all of us.
That frustration with elites that are considered to be out of touch is real. We heard the Greek Prime Minister this Tuesday call this a predictable crisis.
From my point of view, the Greek crisis is not similar to the UK crisis. And
so this one was not predictable?
So it was a narrow vote predicted. All the polls beside YouGov obviously went in the wrong direction before the vote. But so until the very end, there was hope that also the other result could have been possible. For me, I feared it, but I hoped the opposite. And now we have to find a way to deal with this outcome, with what is not good for the European Union.
It's not good for Great Britain at first. It is, for me, the loser of the century is David Cameron. A prime minister who made his whole political career with anti-EU politics and blaming EU for everything, and for everything which is much more true for national politics in Great Britain as far as I can see. And now, at the very last moment, trying to go for another solution for a pro-European cause was not very credible. What we see now is that it was completely irresponsible not to tell the people as from the beginning what the European Union does for them and what does it mean international cooperation. They refused international cooperation. How can you do that in the age of globalization? We took 40 years to come closer together with the internal market, and now dissolving the internal market will have huge disadvantages for the Great Britain economy. I told my cities in my constituency, now you have to provide sites to offer it to British companies to come to the continent. It is so harmful what the British elite, the British political class did for their own people, that I find it's so irresponsible.
Ingeborg Gressler, we saw in recent regional elections in Germany, your party bleed votes to the anti-immigrant AfD party. Could we see more of that next year? This feeling that elites are out of touch, and the way to do it is with these protest votes come the general election in a year's time in Germany.
No, I don't think so. You know, we had some internal problems within our own party family. These problems we try really to solve, and we try to solve them seriously. That our own political party in the center of the political landscape in Germany does not feed those kind of populist criticism. And then what we see now is that this populist party, that they motivate a lot of people who did not vote yet. They have voters from the non-voting group, and it's very difficult to reach those people. That's what we try to do. We will reach those people to talk to them.
But this I Heart Europe pitch to those voters who feel as though globalization has passed them by, it's a hard sell.
It's absolutely a hard sell, but you know, this is life and this is modern development. But we should not produce losers with our politics. This is true, and this is a very important point.
On this point, there are two schools of thought going forward. We heard the President of the European Parliament, Martin Schulz, call for a better Europe, more balanced. And a lot of people, both in Germany and France, are saying the answer to what just happened is more Europe, a more federal Europe, more integrated on things like immigration policy, more integrated on things like sharing the burden when it comes to tax harmonization. Is more Europe the answer after this vote?
Of course not. It's a false answer. And you must remember that the Constitution for Europe was rejected in France and in Holland. So the people of those both countries, but not only from them, don't want more Europe. More Europe is not a medicine. A medicine is more freedom, rather. And if you think, if you said that the people in the UK didn't know what they are voting for, if not, give them another chance. But today's resolution was go as soon as possible.
So what I followed, especially in the hot phase of campaign, and this should be a concern for you as you represent Poland here. There was a very, very tough xenophobic touch in the campaign. It was very much against the migrants and especially also internal EU workers coming exactly also from your country. What I read as anti-Polish attitudes from this campaign, I find it shocking.
And there was a formal complaint from the Polish ambassador in London.
But in addition to this xenophobic,
apology from the Prime Minister.
Yeah, but so it will not help. These xenophobic attacks continue. We read hourly reports from UK that people are that they are attacked in words and also really. So in addition there was this idea this idea campaigned on by Nigel Farage that UK pays too much and that this is so something with what it's money they have to keep for their own. Now they discover that they are not paying that much as they campaigned and that they don't know how to deliver on the wrong promises they gave in the campaign. So this campaign was not mainly about Europe, how it is, how it should be, how it can be improved. It was really on pushing people into negative emotions, and so we have to learn something from it. But for me, for example, it's very important to say that against nationalism, Europe was the answer, not only after the war and in the dark times of Europe, but Europe is still the answer against nationalism. We can improve it, but we have also to fight for it as it is so that we are able to improve it. And so, sorry, the Polish should have a huge say in this, because I'm proud to know that many Polish citizens who have been fighting to achieve what we have achieved since the Iron Curtain collapsed.
Yes, of course, but what does the problem show? The problem shows that the people of Great Britain, but not only of Great Britain, people of Germany, from Poland, they are afraid about migrants' politics. They are afraid.
Yeah, we can do better. I don't doubt we can do better. We always have to find...
What do you mean better? What do you mean better?
I think we have to agree, obviously, on how we deal with the migrant situation. United Nations are asking us as Europeans and Northern Americans to agree on quotas of Syrian refugees suffering from an awful war, especially also since Putin has interfered. The United Nations are asking us on fixing quotas to take refugees from Syria to Europe. I think we should agree on such quotas. We should, in
addition, over the heads of the people.
Maybe also is possible to be flexible and only a group of European member states is going ahead. We did it before, and then we fix with, for example, Poland the issue later. In the same time, and this is also a demand by Poland, we have to agree on how we manage our common borders. It's very much about security also, and this we can do. We can improve.
Yeah, what we see that the consensus has broken around the humanitarian aid. Nobody talks about migration policy in accepting Syrian refugees. It is a temporary shelter. That's what we offer, and it's not an immigration. And this mixing up...
Was the migrant crisis a poster for Brexit?
I think it was dealt like that. And this was the unfortunate point, because nobody told the people that we talk about temporary shelter. mixing up the refugee crisis, and we see what's going on around Europe, the problems we have now around the Mediterranean seas. You know, we are in a unique situation. We didn't have that before, and making believe people that that there is an easy way out, close the border, make walls and fences, and then the problem will not touch your country. This is false. You know, Farage said the genie is out of the bottle. What we saw with the Brexit, during the Brexit campaign, is the genie is the broken taboo of hate against other people, against racial hate, and this is a serious issue we really need to tackle. You know, we see it in Germany. We had what we call a welcome culture. We took 1 million refugees for temporary shelter, and it's nothing to do with migration policy. But the two issues being mixed up is only to create fear within the people. Now, as we have the Turkey deal, this is a very important deal. As we now try to come to solutions with countries around the Mediterranean seas, I think this is the right way forward.
And that was a main argument, by the way, of the Brexit camp, to say, look at the EU, they want to give Turkey EU membership.
But this was
a
spectacular lie.
This was one of the lies we saw.
There is officially a candidacy process that is ongoing for Turkey. It's still ongoing.
Yes, and it's the only way that we are able to influence Turkish politics, as the Turkish president is as he is. But having this accession procedure is the only way to talk to them. It's our only possibility also to call him for rectifying his politics and having some means and instruments behind. If not, we wouldn't have nothing. Therefore, this the Nigel Farage and his friends, I'm ashamed for them, and they are the second losers of the century, because all the arguments they put forward will come back to them. And Great Britain is now in a difficult situation, because what I see is that there's a real immigration since a lot of years coming from the Commonwealth. Why nobody talks about that? And explain to me why the British elites are so interested in having immigration and very cheap main d'oeuvre people who work. And the poor are the ones who have a lot of advantages from the European Union, because the European Union puts forward minimal standards, and that these minimal standards are refused by the United Kingdom, and by those poor, it's for me a certain tragedy.
Kosmas Zlotowski, bluntly, what's going to happen to the Polish citizens in the United Kingdom, who've been such a big boost, right, to the growth you've had the last decade and a half?
Well, I hope those people who are settled in Great Britain, they will stay for some years.
Do you think the Brexit terms should include keeping the free movement of people?
Well, I think that there will be some bilateral negotiations between Poland and Great Britain, and between European Union and Great Britain.
Are you in favor, though, of keeping those free movement of people between Britain and Poland?
Well, from my side of view, yes, of course. But from the British side of view, I don't know.
Rebecca Harms, what will be the terms of this Brexit? Will they be able will they have to have this free movement of people with the EU citizens?
So it depends on what they want, and there can, in the end, not only be a wish list from the side of the UK. So you cannot have only advantages, but escape then the duties in the European Union's project, also not in a new relationship. So burdens and advantages, this goes together, and most of the European countries so far agree that the advantages we achieve in the common project, they are much higher than the disadvantages. And what I find worrying is that the UK politicians who really pushed the country in this situation, that they now have no clue how to really stabilize the situation of their citizens. It's so escaping from the opening of Article 50 procedure shows only that they have not been prepared to make sure that there is a good perspective for the citizens. And we cannot, right now, we can only say we want a fair procedure. We don't know, as Martin Schulz rightly said now in the council, we don't know this procedure. There is no experience with it.
Do you buy David Cameron's argument that you'll have to wait till September until my successor is named?
I find David Cameron, to be honest, I find him very weak in this situation. So Hill is for me a good example. Cameron is playing with power, and he got a lot of support and solidarity from the European leaders when they agreed on the compromise with Cameron, and now he is ignoring that there is a common interest. Some days ago he was still campaigning for the common European Union. Now he forgets that both sides need a fair way. And I'm not among those who push. I was also against this wording on immediately, but we need a soon opening of the procedure, and David Cameron should play fair as others played to him when they agreed with him on the compromise.
When the procedure is opened in 1 or 2 months, David Cameron is no more Prime Minister of Great Britain. There will be a new one. So
that'll be September.
So
yes.
This one who played
maybe later.
Yesterday, and then you talk about Johnson.
And then they will
he has a plan.
And then they will discover.
We will see. We will see.
No, but look to Boris Johnson. If there is somebody without any clue, this man has the name Boris Johnson.
No, it is utmost shocking that the politicians who were at the head of this decision, who led the campaign, have now completely disappeared. They have the duty to take over responsibility now to lead the people, to lead the country.
Yes.
This country is without leadership. It is a shocking experience for me that in
The UK is without leadership.
Yes, of course. Because all those people who need to take over responsibility, they are without
this
leadership.
confidence vote today. He
But
lost.
don't be so afraid about Great Britain.
No,
Let's be afraid
no.
about the European
No, but
Union
please,
about this. What will outcome?
We are afraid of the future of both sides.
Neither Norway nor Switzerland are the members of European Union, and they are our neighbors, and they are.
Okay, so let me put the question in, Ingeborg Gressler. Sorry, it's a little bit wonky, as they say. There's two scenarios people are talking about. One is countries like Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, where there's a partnership, but in point of fact, those three countries do give money to the EU and do accept this free movement of people. Or, as many across the channel have been suggesting, do you go for a Canada-like solution where it's just a free trade agreement?
Free trade agreement we do not have yet. The CETA we do not have yet. You know, in my view, Great Britain will discover that everything is known yet. Even if you leave, you want to have a free trade agreement, there are rules and you have obligations to accept. It's not that they tell us what they would like to give. No, there are rules for everything. That's why they will discuss.
So if they say no free movement of people, no free trade agreement?
No free trade agreement, of course. You know, yes, of course.
You're saying that now, but there's a lot at stake, right? Financial services, industry, trade. People will say, hey, come on, have a deal.
But this is for the City of London at stake, not for European Union. You know, if Great Britain needs investments from the continent, anyway, there will be a problem, and things are interlinked.
It's not just the City of London. Look at the Nissan car factory in Sunderland and these kinds of places. Yeah. How there'll be pressure to have a deal.
Yeah, there will be pressure to have a deal, but you know, we have the experience with the free trade agreements with Switzerland and with Norway and with Greenland. And they are really different. The models are different. That's why choose one of these models, and you know which obligations you have. It's not feasible that you get only one side of the coin, you will have both, to accept both sides.
And in addition, so if I remember what Farage and Boris Johnson and other famous Leave campaigners have promised to their citizens, what they will get based on these examples is they have the same financial burden, pretty much, and they have no impact on democratic decision-making process in all the European institutions. So it's not a situation of winning, it's a situation of losing also democratically. And so this is really the opposite of the promise they gave to their citizens.
We wind up with a some people have talked about a giant Singapore, this big tax haven at Europe's door.
So I don't see that is exactly what the Londoners want. So the problems we see since the vote in London, the problems we see with the Scottish people and the people in Northern Ireland, I think UK has not got what Farage and others promised. UK has got a lot of problems, and we are so far asking only fair solution.
And they will have to comply to rules they cannot even influence. And concerning the money, you know, now Great Britain and the universities are one of the big receivers of EU money in the research programs Horizon 2020. And therefore it's unthinkable that this can continue like that without sending money. And for instance, the pension obligations for the EU officials who retire, the British ones, of course they have to be shared as well.
Cosma Zlotowski, you were saying it's not Britain that has a problem, it's the EU. I know your foreign minister has blamed the EU leadership for the mistakes. He's calling for the resignation of Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the European Commission, and of the former Polish Prime Minister, who's now the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk. Why is that?
Well, it's simple. I think that the impudence of Mr. Jean-Claude Juncker is very high. And
but how can you blame him for the Brexit vote?
The politics of the European Commission against or in front of such countries and Hungary, Poland, Austria, is very impudent, and it has involved the English people to vote against.
What do you suggest?
So I think that the European Commission has no political role. This is an administrative body and should be an administrative body and not a political, but it is. And I think...
So is that sour grapes over the fact that the Commission has taken Poland to task?
European Commission wants to be a super government in Europe, and the British don't accept this. So
the Commission doesn't have the mandate.
This is the reason to blame Mr. Juncker for Brexit. And this is also my opinion.
Much more the outcome of the discussions in between Warsaw and Brussels, and it's a bit now it's using this momentum after the Brexit. But on this, I can tell you. So I have never been in favor of pushing and forcing EU member states to something.
Yeah, because there was talk of this Article 7 being evoked because of what had happened in Poland with the Constitutional Council.
Can you imagine that the Council has a majority for Article 7? I don't. But the Commission's role is they are the guardians of the treaties. And so on this, we have something to discuss. Poland, the Polish government invited the Venice Commission to check the situation. The Venice Commission said we have problems. How we deal with it is another issue. But I don't think that because of this, you should go for a major crisis with the European institutions, because still, so in a different position to you, I know Poland a bit. I think Polish people are still very convinced Europeans,
yes,
and we will. So the Poles will solve their problems and not against the European Commission.
It can be toned down. But let me ask you, because at the same time,
without help of European Commission also.
Let me ask you, because at the same time, there's this call blaming Brexit on the Commission, blaming Brexit on the President of the European Council. But at the same time, in the same statement made by the Polish Foreign Minister, he said there are ways in which we should have more Europe, and most notably defense. He's talking about a European army.
Well, it's an idea which can be discussed, but it is not the proposal on the table.
But for Poland and the security situation, so I work a lot on Russia, Ukraine, etc. You know it, very often together with Polish members. And in
that's the reason we are so purely European.
No, it's not the only reason, but your security interests right now is also about EU standing together in the challenge so we face from the Kremlin, and that European Union also stands together on the strategy we have chosen all together with Merkel and Hollande in the leads, that we decide not to a response with military means, but that we have our sanctions to strengthen common European diplomacy. And I think so. I have no signal that Poland wants to leave this.
But you know, should be what happened around the Brexit debate should be a lesson for you and your political party, because this party does so much European Union bashing in Poland that the same situation is thinkable in Poland in 10 years if you continue like that. And you are dependent much more on us and on our help and our support than any other country seeing your international situation. And when we look at the security needs of Europe, it's highly regrettable that Great Britain will leave, because they have they are member of the Security Council of the United Nations. They have a military force which deserves the name military force. They are cooperation partners in the NATO, and it will complicate a lot everything we do with them in EU missions and so on and so forth. It is a real pity that instead of trying to improve the situation, instead of cooperating and trying to make things better, they they took this decision.
Ingeborg Gressler, we remember a few years back there was a cover of The Economist that talked about Germany as being the reluctant hegemon. The UK leaving the EU, does that shift more of the balance your way, and perhaps that's unwanted by Berlin? They don't want to be the boss of Europe.
We don't want to be the boss of Europe.
But it's what's going to happen, right?
No, and we aren't. But
a little bit more.
Yeah. Germany regrets a lot, because UK was a very important partner. You know, we share the same ideas of freedom. We share the same ideas on what a state should do and what should not do, on liberty, on freedom of our economy. And this is really it's hard for us to stand in future. And we will try to.
So how do you rebalance in that case?
We will try to invite now Italy.
Hence, Matteo Renzi was invited to Berlin on.
Yes. But of course, it is a new situation, and there will be new coalitions. But without any doubt, with the UK leaving EU, the Union is weakened, without any doubt.
All right, we're pleased to welcome another guest to our panel from the Commission itself. Introduce yourself to our viewers.
My name is Maroš Šefčovič. I'm Vice President of the European Commission, and I'm responsible for the Energy Union.
And for the Energy Union, we've just been talking about just how the balance of power is going to shift inside of the European Union with Britain leaving. We had Ingeborg Gressler there talking about how we're going to bring more countries like Italy into the fold. We saw in Berlin there was 3 leaders at the rostrum on Monday: François Hollande, Angela Merkel, and Matteo Renzi. How do you see a Europe without the UK?
I think that it's a big loss, that's for sure. I think because the UK still is very important member of the European Union. They are the member of G7. They've been a supporter of the enlargement of the European Union. They've been strong supporters for the free trade, for the free market policies in the EU. Big supporter of the single market. So I was absolutely convinced that the UK definitely would be stronger in the EU, and EU would be stronger if the UK would remain.
We had the feeling those three leaders looked caught out on Monday when they spoke, that they didn't have a plan. There isn't a plan right now.
I think that, you know, unfortunately, I had to admit that since the first moment when David Cameron announced his plans about this referendum 2 years ago, I was very worried what would be the result, because, I mean, when you travel to the London quite often, as we do, you felt that there was very strong anti-EU and anti-EU feelings, especially coming from certain media. But also, I have to say, the debates in the Westminster were not easy either. So there was some kind of special attitude towards the EU. And I would say, if the British Prime Minister or the Finance Minister would speak with the same emotion about the EU as they did during the campaign over the last 2 years, today I'm sure we would have a different conversation.
Ingeborg Gressler, we heard the mention there about free trade. Now, one of the things that the EU is associated with is the bailout of the banks. It's associated with austerity policies, and there is the feeling that those austerity policies, often enacted by the government in London itself, but they're associated with Europe, that there's this dogma where there isn't enough investment in infrastructure. I know there's this Juncker plan that exists now to build infrastructure, but that Europe is associated with tight fiscal policies. It's associated with things that don't create jobs.
What is a pity, and it's not true, the European Union and the member states bilaterally gave a lot of money to all crisis countries. They made, in fact, a bailout against European treaties, and this helped a lot. And there is still a lot of money available. When I look at Greece, I'm belonging to the Financial Assistance Working Group for Greece. There's a lot of money available. The problem is that the member states, some member states have so many problems they are unable to resolve. It's their fault that they don't resolve it. I can make hours and hours on the problems in Greece, homemade problems. And this austerity thinking and speaking about austerity does not include all the money given to those states. We gave a lot of money for growth and jobs. The problem is that you can't create growth and jobs from one day to the other. You need a plan, and here the national governments are lacking of a plan as well, because having growth and jobs, you need structures, you need economic structures, you need to build it up from scratch in some member states, and this will take time.
Rebecca, next year, before the Germans vote, the French will be voting in a presidential election. This rage against Brussels, a lot of it is down to how come they have these tight fiscal policies all the time? How come they're not doing more to spur job growth?
So we had a lot of discussions over the years since 2009 on how we fix the rules for our fiscal behavior and our budgets. And my group was always critical by not saying we are against the rules, but we found that the strategy of the European Union was not sustainable, because we did not balance what has been the impact of the budgetary rules. For example, for Greece, we did not balance it with a kind of investment program, and we did not take care of the collapse of the social systems, for example. So there are problems right now in some of those crisis countries, which have been not only created by the European Union, but they became sharper in the years of crisis, and we have together with the member states, we have to figure out how to do better. But again,
and certainly
in the vote in the UK, so the Greek situation did not play a major role.
But there is this feeling in working class areas where voters deserted the Labour Party, that there is this feeling that in those areas that Brussels forgot them, and
So I don't think so that this is always right in France. Let me mention, for example, the energy sector, and that Areva and EDF are in such a deep mess. Yeah, so this has not been caused by the European Union. That the big players the big industry players in France are in problems has been caused in France. So we have to deal with the problems we face in a proper way. We have to take responsibility where Europe is responsible, but we have to take responsibility also in the national states, in the member states, where the governments are responsible. And because we have here Mr. Šefčovič, responsible for the energy union. I am really campaigning since years that this energy union should be the positive future project of the European Union, that we should really use the Juncker plan, we should increase it, and we should go for a real innovation project with the title Energy Union. Citizens are in favor of renewables, they are in favor of efficiency innovations, and so please don't wait too long. Go for a future project as our founding fathers were able to do with Euratom or the Treaty on Steel and Coal. We need it, but we have to do it in the right way.
Before I get the reaction of Commissioner Šefčovič, let me ask you, what's your religion on this? That the problem with the EU is there isn't enough of these kinds of joint projects which need a lot of spending, big infrastructure, energy.
Yes, well, we need new ideas and we need new...
Do you endorse what Rebecca Harms just said?
Yes, it is one of them. Yes, it is. And, well, if we are skeptic against the European Union, it doesn't mean that we are skeptic in all prospects. We are not. Sometimes.
No, sometimes we agree. So,
Commissioner Šefčovič, when you see the tone of the campaign in Britain, how do you think it bodes for that French presidential election where the far right is slated to make it to the second round?
I think that we all should be very concerned, because I learned a new word on Friday, that the campaign was described as a fact-free campaign. And I would say that's something which should be treated with a lot of care, and I would also appeal to your colleagues, the journalists, to be much stronger in verifying the facts, doing the necessary checks on what's been presented.
By the way, Thursday night we were reporting live from a pub in London, and we got an earful about Commissioner Juncker. They felt as though the man talks down to people.
I don't think so. That was the reason for this discussion. But what I saw, in the campaign, and as I told you, we've been traveling quite often to UK, and really to answer these endless questions that we want to forbid our British friends to drink the tea because we are going to regulate the kettlers, or that we are going to force the British farmers to put nappies on the cows, and all this nonsense, which is, of course, it might sound ridiculous, but if you have this type of the news every single day in every tabloid paper, then of course you somehow create that feeling in the subconsciousness of the people there is something wrong with the EU. So if you have to go to cast the ball, in the end, this emotion prevails, and therefore I think what is very important for any other European countries to be very strong on the facts, that we should be probably ready to speak up a little bit more for Europe, to contradict these outright lies, and really to demonstrate a little bit more concretely what we do for the concrete cities and for the concrete cities, because paradoxically some of the regions in the UK which are, as you said, poor and which voted against Europe, so this was exactly the target regions for some of the assistance, which
I believe the region, or the county that got the most EU aid voted something like 62% for leaving. Why?
Yeah, my guess would be that the reason for that is, and it's a little bit typical for our atmosphere in the EU, if the project is successful, or if this money was coming to the region, it was a victory for the local government, for the national government, but if something goes wrong or if it's some kind of criticism raised linked with this project, very often it's immediately blamed on Brussels. And I hope that the leaders who are discussing this issue just right now across the street, that if they would call for such a reflection period or self-reflection, which I think is necessary, that one of the things we really need to discuss how honestly we are going to debate Europe, that the victory should be joint common victory. If we do something wrong, let's explain why this mistake was committed, why we adopted such a tough decisions, but it must be clear.
It's got to be explained. Let me just ask you, because I've asked at the outset the members of the panel, and I want to get your reaction to this, is what's the mood inside the Commission? We've had the resignation of Jonathan Hill, the British Commissioner. There was this statement by the President of the European Council. It felt like someone close has left our home. Is that how you feel today?
Definitely. I think we've been extremely, I would say, sad and frustrated, because, I mean, the divorce is never a nice and easy thing, especially with a partner with whom you spend almost more than 40 years together. And of course, with Jonathan Hill, it's very personal, because he's my colleague, he's my friend. I think that he did an outstanding job as a commissioner. He was doing his utmost to explain the European policies in the UK, and I fully understand his decision after Friday. So that was, I would say, the basic emotion. But at the same time, it's quite clear that we have too much responsibility just to be emotional about this issue. We need to make sure that we will adopt appropriate measures to stabilize the markets, to make sure that we will not get back into the economic crisis, which was so painful for the European citizens. And we will start the appropriate, well-organized, professional process of the separation, of the Brexit, and we hope that our British partners will trigger the process and we can start to negotiate.
Final point on this, Ingeborg Gressler. I spoke with one EU diplomat who said, don't expect this big wake-up call that will jolt Europe into being better and better reformed because of elections in Germany, elections in France.
I think there is a certain will to improve the union, and this will is there. I see it every day. And this is the main way forward. We should do what we...
So you think there will be a wake-up call?
Yes. There is a wake-up call, since, you know, we are expecting doing things better. We know that we should be better. The Juncker Commission started not to regulate a lot. That's why I see that the message is understood everywhere here in Brussels, and every day people are working very hard to improve the union. It's not that these are egoistic people who do not think about holding the union together.
All right, the wake-up call is there, says Ingeborg Gressler. I want to thank you. I want to thank as well Maros Stefkovic. I want to thank Kosmos Latovsky and Rebecca Harms. Thank you for joining us here for this special edition of the France 24 debate from the European Commission. Our coverage continues on France 24.